If you are a high achieving professional, maybe in your 40s or 50s, and has built something that's real and still feels like something is off, you're probably not confused. You're misaligned. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly what the difference is between the two and why it matters and what to do with it. You have been calling it confusion, but I want to offer you a different word. Confusion says, I don't know what I want. I don't know what's next. I don't know who I am anymore. Misalignment, though, that says something very different. It says, I know who I am. I just haven't been living like it. Hey, free people, if you are a high achieving professional, maybe in your 40s or 50s, and has built something that's real and still feels like something is off, you're probably not confused. You're misaligned. And those are not the same problem. So, first, I want to talk about what confusion actually is and why it's clearly the wrong diagnosis. We like saying that. We like saying, I'm confused. I don't know what I want. Confusion is a real experience. It's literally like a fog. Like you can't see what's ahead of you. You can't see what's present with you, what's working, what's not working. And it's like you're standing at a crossroads with no signs showing any direction whatsoever on where to go or what to do. So, with that, you cannot think your way through to an answer no matter how hard you try. And for a lot of high achievers, confusion is the story that they've told themselves for a long time, for years, because confusion feels like less scary than the alternative. The alternative being, I know exactly what's wrong, and I've known for a while. I just haven't wanted to face it yet. Confusion gives you the permission to just stay still and dismiss it and not give it any sort of validation or connection or realness in your life. But misalignment, when you know and verbalize and say it's a misalignment, you've identified the what's going on and what's happening. That means that there's action to be taken, and you can't just sit with that as easily as I'm confused and I don't know what to do. I remember it was like yesterday that I said that term quite often, and I had to talk my way through stopping to use that language because I started to understand I wasn't confused. I knew exactly what was going on all along, and I chose to stay in confusion because it gave me permission to not do anything. I'm confused. I'm thinking through. I don't know the answer yet. So, the first thing I want to do is give you like a working definition for each. Let's get complete and total clarity on the difference between confusion and misalignment. Because the difference between the two is what gives you the motivation and the determination and the drive to do something about it. And deciding on one versus the other kind of sets a clear path on what to do next. So, this may surprise you, but the actual difference is that confusion lives in the mind. I know it's crazy to think of it this way, that confusion lives in the mind because we are taught to think things through and to really use our brain. Many of us grew up with others telling us, our teachers, our mentors, our parents, maybe even, use your brain, think about it, just think about it. And misalignment actually lives in the body. So, just from understanding where these come from within the body tells us a very completely different story. And here's the simplest way that I know how to distinguish between the two. Because if we don't have clarity on what it is, where it lives, and where it comes from, we don't really understand the true deep rooted meaning behind each. So, certainly, how do we know how to identify it to be able to distinguish them? Confusion is actually a cognitive experience. It lives in the mind, it grows in the mind, it expands in the mind. When you are confused, you are trying to think your way to an answer. And many times it feels like you're hitting a brick wall. How many times have you said that as you're thinking through something and you all you can turn to is I keep running into a brick wall. I have nowhere to go from here with this thought process and what I'm thinking when I am considering what thoughts do I have around a situation that is bringing confusion. But misalignment is a somatic experience. In other words, it lives in the body. It breathes through the body. It palpitates. It's palpable through the body. And when you're misaligned, your body has already reached a verdict. The body knows before the mind knows. It's just waiting for your mind to catch up and to understand or connect with what is happening. So, having been someone that grew up like many of us with this belief, think about it. Just sit with it and use your brain and really think about it. So, that belief that that is what we're supposed to do, that we're supposed to think about it, and then the answer will come as if out of thin air, the answer will just hit your mind and your words will come, the words will come to your mind and you will understand it and you will be able to articulate the answer and you'll be able to process. Now, we're not exactly thinking through all of these things, but that's what it means to understand something, to have clarity with something and clarity with an answer and what's next and what do we do. But actually, what's happening is that when we're told to think about it or we tell ourselves, just think about it, the answer will come to you. We're we're up here. We're up in the head and we're putting more and more pressure to think things through. There's a very common visual, a common expression when we're saying think about it. It's like, oop, I got my George on my lap here. We're going, hmm, and we're even like pointing at our head. We're like, gosh, what is it? And we're contemplating in that way where everything is being carried up here. Everything is felt up here in the expressions and everything is up here. As a matter of fact, all of our energy tends to like tense up from like the shoulders up when we're sitting in confusion, when we're sitting in believing that we have to think through the answer to come up with whatever answer it is that we want, whether it's what we're going to have for dinner or where we're going to go on vacation, or if we're going to leave a job or if we're going to stay with a job and approach our boss about a promotion or a raise or another position. All of it, meaning anything that has us stuck in how to proceed forward and brings all of that energy up. That's where it lives, that's where it expresses itself, and that's where it really shows. And that's why we start getting this tension here in our neck and in our shoulders, and all of that energy is pushed upwards. So confusion responds to more information, more thinking, more clarity seeking. We're telling ourselves that word, clarity seeking, that phrase, I need to get clear, I need to understand, I need to think through. We're all familiar with that scenario and that constant repeated language that comes to our mind when we're trying to think through something. But misalignment responds very differently. Misalignment is a somatic experience that's felt through the body. In other words, misalignment is a completely different intervention. You can literally think about misalignment forever and never move an inch because the problem is not in your head. The signal is in your body. And most high achievers spend decades learning how to override it. So let's think about 3 forms of misalignment. In my work with professionals at this stage, I have found that misalignment shows up in 3 very distinct patterns. I call them the 3 misalignment modes. The first is what I call the quiet giver. You know what you want, but you keep putting everyone else first. The pressure you carry is mostly about obligation and belonging. The second is called still water. With still water, you have lost touch with what you want entirely. Not because you don't have desires, but because you have been managing yourself so efficiently for so long that the signal has actually become quiet, hence still water. The third is called gilded cage. You have everything you've worked for, and the fact that it doesn't feel like enough, that is its own kind of grief. Most people recognize themselves in one of these almost immediately, and some carry pieces of all 3 with them. And the reason I'm naming each of these is that each mode has a different first move. What helps the quiet giver is not the same as what helps the still water. So the starting point matters. So what do you do when you recognize that it's misalignment and not confusion? The clarity on what we call this thing that we have going on helps to create a safe container that feels as if we can begin to understand why this misalignment exists versus feeling stuck in confusion. So, what do you actually do with this? Step 1 is really the hardest part. Stop trying to think your way through. It's almost impossible to imagine stopping thinking your way through. But when you understand that misalignment isn't a puzzle to figure out, and it's not something to solve, it's actually a signal to follow. So, step 2 is actually to start asking yourself different questions. Not what should I do next, but what does my body already know that my mind keeps overriding? Not what do I want, but instead asking what do I keep pretending I don't want? Step 3 is actually to name your mode or your mode of being, as I like to say. Because once you know which pattern you are in, the path forward gets specific, not generic, and not follow your passion advice, but specific. And that's exactly what the free tool I created is meant to help you do. I want to leave you with this. If you have been calling it confusion and you have been waiting for the confusion to clear, if this feels familiar to you, maybe, just maybe, you've been waiting for the wrong thing. Confusion clears when you get more information. Misalignment clears when you start telling the truth. It's hard to imagine that we weren't telling ourselves the truth. We weren't admitting our own truth. But the first truth is usually the simplest. Just admitting that something is off. The next truth was that you already knew it. So if you want help understanding and naming what mode you are actually in and what your specific first move should be, I made a free 5-question audit called the Quiet Identity Audit. The link is in the description. It takes 3 minutes, and it will tell you more about what's actually going on than most things that you would spend nearly an hour on. I'll see you in the next video. And if you would please like and subscribe if this video helped you in any way, like and subscribe and watch the next suggested video for you.